Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live and I'm Cyril Stober. Tonight, Tuesday Live will focus on food security, challenges in the face of global drop in the food supply and demand chain. Now, a report from the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization says about 19.4 million people will face food insecurity across Nigeria between June and August 2022. But Nigeria still has the potential to be food secured if the following strategies are adopted and implemented: rural development, provision of easy access to basic farm inputs, and adequate budgetary allocation, particularly to the food crop subsector. Now, global politics and instability in most predominantly crop cultivating destinations, coupled with insecurity in Nigeria, are some of the contributory factors limiting the production and distribution of farm produce, with growing hardship across consumption and production zones. Tuesday Live tonight will carefully examine the increasing and disturbing challenges and how these excruciating factors could be mitigated. But before we go into the discussion, let's get to see this report put together by agriculture correspondent Musa Baba Aliyu.
This is what most farmers go through to produce over 70% of the food Nigerians consume daily. The whole process requires great concentration, manually demanding, and energy and stamina snapping. Most of them use recycled seeds with low yield output and manure to boost production. In spite of all this, they are rated as the backbone of the country's food chain.
Subsistence farming is not enough to keep the family anymore. We have to make it an agribusiness. We have to make agriculture a dignified vocation for everybody. And if we're not using ICT, we're not using simple improved technology, there's no way we can increase production.
Between 2015 and 2020, certain percentage of the smallholder farmers enjoyed some support from the federal government. The support were in three phases: the Presidential Fertilizer Initiative that brought down the price of fertilizer from 12 to 5,500 naira; the Anchor Borrowers Program, which provided financial support and input as loan to farmers; interventions coming through the Federal Ministry of Agriculture from donor agencies, World Bank and African Development Bank.
Mr. President, His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari has really pumped more money in the agri sector than any of the previous administrations. And we can see from the achievement that the ministry has made in the last 5-6 years. Today, Nigeria is self-sufficient in rice production. Nigeria is #1 in rice production in Africa. Nigeria has done so much in the area of improving the production of grains such as rice, maize, soybeans, and the rest of.
We have now put in place what we call spin-off companies for all our research institutes. Now, our spin-off companies will now be their responsibility to make sure that their research findings are not in the shelf. It is a separate, independent but integral part of the agricultural research system.
However, the outbreak of COVID-19, communal clashes, banditry, coupled with the high cost of input, are gradually overshadowing the success so far recorded in the agricultural sector. For instance, the war in Russia and Ukraine has affected fertilizer production in the country, with a bag going above 30,000 naira. Investigation further indicates that close to 40% of farming communities in Zamfara, Katsina, Sokoto, Kebbi, Benue, and Niger states are being threatened by terrorists. Drought, flood, and erosion as a result of climate change are other threats to food security. The Nigerian Meteorological Agency has warned that some states in the northeast, southwest, and southeast may record heavy rains, that could lead to flooding.
We have a lot of flooding now. We're not talking about harvesting the rain. We're not talking about having simple dams in our farm, affordable one, so that when there's seizure of rain, we will be able to feed the farms with it.
Some food processors have warned that the price of food items, especially rice and maize, could go above 30,000 naira next year if three issues are not addressed. The issues are security for farmers, palliative to reduce the high cost of input, especially fertilizer, and subsidy on power and diesel for processors and transporters of agricultural produce. Musa Aliyu, NTA News.
That report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. I'd like to introduce our guests. Let me welcome to this program Shehu Tijani Bello, MNI. He is Director, Agri-Lands and Climate Change Management Services Department of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Monsieur.
I'd also like to welcome Kabir Ibrahim, President, All Farmers Association of Nigeria, ALFAN. He's an architect by profession. Good to have you join us.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
And let me also welcome Deputy Commandant General Olushola Odumosu. He is Director Public Relations, Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, Headquarters, Abuja. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you very much.
And also joining us tonight is Professor Abba Gambo, Dean Faculty of Agriculture, Yobe State University, and a renowned Professor of Agronomy. Prof, good to see you tonight.
Thank you, Cyril. How is my sister doing?
Okay. We'll talk after the program. So, again, if you're familiar with NTA Tuesday Live, at some point in time you can get to be part of the discussion in the studio. We'll remind you of the procedure at that time. But for now, let's start off by looking at the role of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, government per se, in supporting farmers directly with specifics. And now I'm talking about high-yielding seedlings from the point where the crops are planted, harvesting, right to the end by the consumers. So let's start off with the Director of Agri-Lands and Climate Change Management Services in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. Let's look at the role of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sir. Just as my minister said, when he spoke when you spoke to him just before we came on air,
Yes.
on the report he was that was first said. Federal Ministry of Agriculture, and let me say Nigerian government as a government, have actually done very well for agriculture, especially from 2015 up to this moment. You will recall that when this administration took over in 2015, the first thing the Mr. President did was to launch the Rice Initiative in Kebbi State, which gave back to the ANCOS Brewer program for domestic production of rice to reduce importation or eliminate importation of rice. Between 2015 and 2019, I think that succeeded largely because you find that a lot of farmers went back to their farms and our domestic production of rice actually went up. That made us to be classified as the largest rice producing country in Africa. It wasn't just for nothing. The achievements are actually there. But from 2019 to now, a lot of factors came up, unforeseen circumstances. For example, the issue of COVID-19 in 2019, only for us to be also saddled with an ongoing war in Europe, which affected the inputs that we use for farming. I'm talking specifically fertilizers.
All right.
You find also, despite that, the government try annually to give palliative to our farmers. If you could recall, you find that as of this year, all the 36 states have been slated to be given palliative, that in terms of seeds, agro input, some machineries. The presidential initiative on fertilizer actually does fertilizer distribution now. Federal Ministry of Agriculture doesn't do fertilizers.
All right.
But also, they also give these fertilizers to the farmers. But what I'm trying to say in effect is that arrangement of presidential initiative on fertilizer has actually, yes, the ministry is aware that the price of fertilizer is actually high in the market compared to what we had last year. But those are factors that are beyond the control of the ministry, if I will not say beyond the control of the country. But I must say that the presidential initiative on fertilizer by this administration was actually a very good thing that they have done. Otherwise, without the presidential initiative on fertilizers, I'm not sure we'll be able to even have the fertilizer we are having now. If you notice that you find that we have three urea manufacturing companies in this country now, and so that we are self-sufficient in urea. The only problem we have with this is that the raw material, you know that we no longer bring in finished fertilizer in this country. We only bring in the raw materials. And the raw material, where do we get it? We have the nitrogen is actually the NPK. I'm talking about NPK. That we get it from the urea, and we have companies that are doing it because we are a petrochemical country. Right. We have this gas. But Nigeria also have a commercial agreement with government of Morocco to bring in phosphate. Then we have with Belarus, Russia to bring in potash. So all these are the ways we have been getting this raw material, and we now have blending plants that are doing this fertilizer. But unfortunately at the source of the raw materials now, because of the ongoing war, the price has gone up. Definitely being businessmen, because the government doesn't control this blending plant, the price naturally will go up. But I can tell you that the government is launching what we call National Agricultural Growth Scheme and Agro Pocket. This scheme, we use it to give input to farmers at a subsidized rate. That is possibly what we're thinking that let's say if you are to get 2 bags of fertilizer, you pay for one, you get one free. But that is strictly for small scale farmer. It will do only 1 hectare.
Fine, thanks so much. Well, from your account so far, government has put in a lot and is putting in a lot. So the big question will go to the farmers themselves, and that's why we have the president of Alpha here and say, yes, you've listened. And the straightforward question that ordinary folks like me would ask is, if you have all that support, what's happening to the level of production, and why are we getting it increasingly difficult to afford the basic food we need for sustenance?
Well, look, there are many factors. Indeed, this administration has put in a lot of energy and money into agriculture. As the Ministry of Agri would tell you, in 2015, I was one of those who escorted Mr. President to launch the Ankobua program, not only on rice, but on rice and wheat. And the CBN, in trying to cut a niche from the launch of the APP, decided on the Ankobua. And at that time, they went with 2.6 billion naira to launch that. From that time on, I believe they have put in a lot of money. And the money may have reached a small fraction of farmers. Whether we like it or not, the Ankobua scheme has done a lot for Nigeria, especially in rice production. But there are many other commodities, and those are also commonplace for the users, you and I. And people go to the market to buy this. Now, insecurity is a very serious factor, very serious threat to production. In so many areas, our people are not able to go to their farms. And then, of course, there was the COVID-19 in 2019, when in the beginning our people could not even go to their farms or take anything to their farms or take anything out of their farms. You remember there had to be a task force to do that and all that. Now, the presidential fertilizer initiative was very good up to 2021. Hitherto, before COVID-19, we were getting fertilizer 2010 at 5,500. In 2020, the chairman of the PFI even gave further subsidy. We bought fertilizer at 5,000. But in 2021, the NSIA, we were in a meeting in the office of the chief of staff, and they said they were getting problems and their accounts were getting red. And therefore, we have to liberalize fertilizer, the sales of fertilizer and its availability. They now withdrew whatever subsidy they had, because according to them in the meeting, they said fertilizers were costing them, 2010 was costing them over 7,000. And there we were selling at 5,000. There was no way they could do anything. Nobody was there to cushion that effect. So we that year 2021 saw fertilizer 2010 being sold at 11,300, and our farmers could not afford it. So the problem began from that 2021. This year the fertilizer is a minimum 25,000. The production cost of fertilizer in every one of the blending plants, and there are 44 functional ones now, it's hardly less than 18,000 per bag. And then when you add transportation and distribution and all that, it comes to about 19,000. So the middlemen and all that add their own, businessmen and all that, and you get fertilizer, even 2010, not 15, not urea, costs over 25,000. Now, because of the cost of the input, there is, of course, a component in production that is quite expensive. Therefore, the productivity and production are affected in the same way that every other thing in this country is affected. Food is very dear to everybody, is in everybody's heart. So people complain so much about this. But we must bear in mind also the fact that the purchasing power of our naira is dwindling every day. The naira today is about 680 to the dollar in the black market. And that is a very serious problem. So if you go to the market today, for instance, if you buy anything for 3 naira, if you go next week, it might be 5 naira. All aspects of life are very costly now. I'm an architect by training. I don't want to talk about food now. Because of the hike in the price of diesel, we now buy granite that used to be 4,500 per ton, now at 6,500. So the whole thing is a gamut of so many factors that will affect the price of food. And then we must bear in mind that this issue is also global now. In the United States today, the inflation rate in the last 40 years has never reached what it is today. It's 9.1. For food, inflation in Nigeria is about 20 point something, and that is very, very serious. On other aspects, like construction, that I told you, is about 18.6, and that kind of thing is it will even bring down everybody's purchasing power, and that is the problem that we have. I want to talk about the support that is coming from the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. For me, I am not aware that of the quantum of the support, and I'm not aware of the channels that the support takes to reach the farmers. I know that there are federal directors of agriculture in every state, and I know that our farmers work with them, but I have not seen reports with facts and figures of the support that goes to them. I have seen the minister launching this in Kaduna, but I have not, in Katsina where I come from, I have not seen the support. And I don't know the quantum, but I hope that it is such that it will impact on the farmers. But because I know that farming actually takes place in the states, not in the federal government will only create the enabling environment for agriculture, not give full support to agriculture.
All right, the summary of this all, the situation country is in, suggests that there are a lot of angry people out there, and that's following the maxim that a hungry man is an angry man. And what with the insecurity? So we have DCG Olushola Udubosu, who is with us, and you've listened to our first two guests talk about how insecurity is impacting on food security. Let's hear you about what the situation is.
First and foremost, let me correct the rank you're giving to me. I am Deputy Commandant of Corps, not a Deputy Commandant General. And I am the Director of Public Relations, Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps. And having said that, going from the angle of security, which is the main reason why I'm here, I want to say categorically that the federal government have invested so much, just like the Ministry of Agriculture have said. And one of the novel initiatives of the federal government to ensure food security is where we come in. And we have the Agro Rangers unit, which is a unit under the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps that was birthed during the tenure of the former Minister of Agriculture, Chief Howdy Obey, as well as in collaboration with his interior counterparts, General Dambazao at that time. And the essence of that is to ensure food security. What do I mean by that? The Agro Rangers is created to protect farmers and their investments, and there was a time in the country where we had an escalation of violent clashes between farmers and herders. And not only that, there was a time that farmers could no longer go to farm due to fear of attack by criminals, especially kidnappers. So the essence of creating the Agro Rangers unit is to forestall every attack on farmers. And by that, we're able to boost farmers' confidence for them to be able to go to farm. And as beautiful as the initiative is, we have been able to restore farmers' confidence. And not only that, we give also protection to the agrarian community. In most parts of the states in the Northeast, you will find our presence, especially where we have to wake up in the morning with the farmers. We escort the farmers to their farms, stay with them on their farms, and watch over them till after they are done with the work for the day, and we see them back to their various houses. The essence of this is to ensure that farmers are protected, and to be able to boost production, which is the intention of the federal government, and that we have keyed in. When the program started, we were able to train about 5,000 personnel, and of course after that training in our college in Katsina, we were trained actually by the military, and the training was very rigorous. And the members of the unit were drawn from the armed squad of the NSCDC. So it was more of, an intense training to be able to, take advantage of, the initiative of government to boost production. And, food is the, source of livelihood of every Nigerians. And that is what I imagine that every responsible government should do, and that is what the federal government did. And of course, we are living up to our responsibility in different parts of the country. In Borno, for instance, you will find the presence of NSCDC in most of the farmlands. Farmers no longer have to be afraid of going to their farms because NSCDC officers are well positioned, and we don't just follow them to the farms. When the new Commandant General of Nigeria Security and Civil Defense, Dr. Hamid Abubakar Howdy, PhD MNI, when he came on board, he reinvigorated that department. He conducted, more training and retraining for the personnel. In fact, he even expanded the scope. And part of the things that were militating against their efficient performance were some, operational equipments, which of course to the best of his ability was able to equip them,
provided vehicles. That's aside from the support we get from some of the state government where our personnel are deployed. And I'm happy to tell you that, so far, we're doing our best in different parts of the Northeast. We have even set up base camp. And the essence of the base camp is to ensure that the personnel that are in agro ranges, they can be easily reached in case of any invasion by any assailants at the farm, so that it will be easy for us to do reinforcement. And to that extent, I think we can give it to the federal government on the plans for food security.
All right, we'll return to you as we go on and check out some of these things you've talked about. But let's go to Professor Abba Gambo now. And Prof, you are the agronomist. So tell us, what status would you say Nigeria has in terms of food security? And then when we start from there, we'll look at the factors that we've talked about. And let's hear your impression of what's been going on from the point of view of what the state has done, what the farmers are doing, and how some of global situations are affecting, and not forgetting our own internal problems as well.
Thank you very much, Cyril. The questions are a kind of holistic, so I want to just take a holistic and a practical way of managing the agricultural system. Presently, the agricultural value chain in Nigeria is the same all over the world. Land clearing is the first. Then you now come and plant when the season is right. Secondly, you apply fertilizer. And then when you apply fertilizer, you make sure that you weed the farm. Then thirdly, you look out for any infestation of pests or diseases, and then you control them. And then as you grow, you are now going to harvest. And then after harvest, you either take it to the market or you store it, or if there is an agro-processing facility anywhere, you can also process it. That is the whole of the agricultural value chain all over the world. Let's take the present status. What is happening now? For land clearing, the tractor uses diesel. Last year, diesel at the tractor was 7,000 per hour for a farmer to pay so that his land would be plowed and harrowed. This year, as I'm talking to you, Cyril, the tractor is 50,000 naira per hour. From 7,000 naira per hour last year is 50,000 naira per hour. So you now look at how the farmers can, if you are talking about 4 hours, you're talking about 200,000, etc. So there is a big challenge there. Then still across the agricultural value chain as you're moving, planting. Most farmers do not have access to what we call hybrid seeds. The research institutes are there, and then they produce so many hybrid seeds. But the problem is there is a disconnect between the farmers, the universities, and the research institutes. There used to be a very effective and efficient extension delivery system that takes the research from the farmer, from the research institutes and the universities to the farmers, and vice versa. But presently, as I'm talking to you, the extension delivery system in the country has collapsed completely. Then still on the value chain, when you're talking about fertilizer application, a bag of NPK 15 last year was 8,000 naira. Today, Cyril, as I'm talking to you, a bag of NPK 15 is 35,000 naira. And honestly, I find it very difficult to understand and also to justify that something that was just 7,000 last year or 8,000 last year will just jump to about 35,000. It's very difficult to understand. Then still talking about, because the farmers cannot afford, so they now look for whatever they can do to make sure that the farms are fertilized. And don't forget our intensive system of farming. Year in, year out, all the farmers are on their farms. So the land is getting tired and the nutrients are getting reduced. Coupled with climatic changes and then environmental vagaries, you find that the land are all degraded all over. So the farmers are now confused. So while they cannot get the chemical fertilizer, they now turn to see what organic matter they can use. So they now go look for cow dungs, poultry droppings, etc., bring it, and they have now gone to the extent of even getting refuse dumps, clear them and bring them to the farm. So when they get the refuse dumps, you have so many things. You have the polythene bag that is so ubiquitous all over the country, the black one, and then it's not degradable. So it's applied to the farm. Then so many other things are brought, and this has caused the situation of army worms presently, most especially in Bauchi State, and particularly in Katagun local government area. Somebody spoke to me and he had army worms on his farm. I said, please, can you just snap the picture of the worm and send it to us? We did an analysis, we got it right, and we told him this is what to apply. He applied. In the morning, he went to the farm, and then he saw all the worms were dead. And he called me, Prof, thank you very much. All the worms are dead. Now what do I do? Do I pack them away? I said, no, leave them. They will add organic manure to the farms. But then, Cyril, the problem is most people do not have access to the chemicals that can kill the worms. So they now go to crude methods of getting diesel. When you to the mechanics, when the car is the diesel is worn out, that is being changed, they take it, they add some petrol onto it, they add some little salt, they add water, and then they spray on their crops, thinking that it will destroy everything, the worms. But then in the morning when they go, the worms are dead, and so are the crops. Then, of course, let's go international a little bit. The Russian-Ukraine war. These two countries, Cyril, can actually feed the whole world. Unfortunately, they are fighting. Ukraine alone services about 45 countries, 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 etc.
Okay, I think we're losing the audio there, and Professor Abagabu will try to fix that glitch and come back, because it's just reeling out some very vital statistics there, which we need on this program. Well, Prof, we'll return to you just as soon as we fix that glitch. But let me come back to the Director of Agric Lands here, and this is a dire situation we're in. Now, apart from the challenges of the Russia-Ukraine war, we also have our security challenges in here. And it was expected that at this time, when fertilizer had a little bit stabilized for the farmers, Nigeria would have made deeper inroads into producing and relying less and less on the importation of the other components. How far about that?
Thank you very much. I think we have to appreciate the fact that we moved from wholesome importation of fertilizer to importation of raw materials for fertilizer, meaning that we're on our way to being domestically self-sufficient in production of fertilizers. As I'm speaking to you, because of our experience of what is happening in Europe, the country is looking inward to see where we can aggregate phosphate and potassium so that we depend less on the importation of this raw material. It's not as if we don't have them, but we have not been able to aggregate the quantity we need that will make us to be producing this fertilizer locally. But with this scenario of this war and what it means for a country to have to depend on other countries to get to fix its agricultural value chain, this has been accelerated. And private companies, when they know that there's money to be made, they will actually invest in getting the the raw material, because what has been stalling investment on fertilizer has always been government intervention. Now that the sector has been basically liberalized, I think we will get more of investment. All we need to do now is to diversify the source of our raw materials. If we can diversify the source of raw material, definitely the price will come down. So, and that is what I can say about that. But quickly, let me say something about what Professor said about the armyworm. The ministry has received report on armyworm infestation on some of our farms. I think in Jigawa, Bauchi, and maybe I'm just hearing that there is UB. We have our pest control unit that has been given the responsibility to handle the issue of the infestation. But you see, the problem is that agriculture is on the concurrent list. Except we get report from the states, it's difficult for federal government to act. And when we used to have the ADPs, when they were very active, normally it's the extension officer. The farmer will report to the extension officer, who will report to the director of extension in the states, who will report to the director of extension in the federal level, if it is something he cannot handle within their state. Yeah. But unfortunately, all these gaps have been noticed, and we are trying to bring them back to what it used to be. As soon as the policy on extension is passed, so some of these gaps will be filled, and the synergy between the state and federal government on agricultural production will be streamlined.
All right, we have a couple of reports, and we'll take the first one now from Lagos. This one is by Diana Ajali.
Food is one of the major sustenance of man, as life survival depends largely on it.
Price then was like maybe 10,000 naira, 12,000 naira, but now it's 30,000 naira. Look at the common pomo that has no value. Now, pomo now, you can't get pomo of 200 naira now. Even if you see the one of 200, you won't be able to use it to cook for yourself.
Those who are actually in the remote areas producing this food, they are being threatened, they are not safe. So some of them have even abandoned their work and for the safety of their life. And then actually putting pressure on the availability of food.
Experts believe Nigeria still has the potential to be food secured.
We have to get our people back on the farm. We have to make the farms secured. We also need to upgrade them. We have to generate a new generation of farmers who can use science and technology to produce optimally.
Any effects of Russia-Ukraine war?
The two countries are the powerhouse of food production in the world, producing over 30% of the grains, cereals we consume, and then oilseed. So the destruction caused by the war is actually affecting everywhere in the world.
Respondents, however, appeal to government at all levels and relevant authorities to ensure safety of farmers across the country, as well as appropriate measures that will help in curbing various logistic challenges, which will in turn help in the reduction of food prices and increase food security. In Lagos, Diana Ajale.
All right, Prof, a number of people would say, well, before we talk about the external influences on food production and food security in Nigeria, let's look at how we can ameliorate the internal challenges that we have. From the point of security, well, this is it's an ongoing war that's we've been trying to win over the question of insecurity with the terrorists and all that around. But beyond that, we also have other issues within the state itself, as in Nigeria, which have adverse effects on food production. And these are the ones that you talk to farmers and they're either talking about inputs and hybrid seed, like Prof said, and in fact, the very first part of it is land itself. That also has a bearing on food security, hasn't it?
It does. Well, you see, it's a gamut of many things, many factors that you have to look at when you look at food production in any country for that matter. In Nigeria, we were very hopeful when the APP was launched, and it brought agriculture on the front burner. Even people who are hitherto not in agriculture embarked on agriculture. There was a lot of action between 2015 and 2016. But we knew there were gaps in distribution of good seeds, mechanization, in fact, even water for all year-round production, not just relying on rain-fed agriculture. All these things should have been done contiguously with every other thing that we were doing. But a lot of state action was either done in silos, or people were not doing what they were supposed to do. Certain appointments by government were even inimical to agri-production and all that. Now, at this point, the blame game is over. The whole idea of food should be everybody's concern, because everybody eats food. Security to be able to produce food is very, very important. The farmers have been involved every part of the way in the search for, search to stem insecurity. We have participated in many fora to be able to give our opinions and things like that on what should be done. A lot of these things, the experts say, are not doable. But since we have come this far and the situation is being even exacerbated, it is good to listen to everybody. You see, as a practical person, if I am going to build anything here, I have to look at so many parameters, the possibility of doing it and for doing it to be sustainable. Now, unless you stem insecurity, you will never be able to get food sufficiency, talk less of food security. If you do not have good seeds, you will not be able to produce a good crop, because seed is sine qua non to production. You must be able to do that. You will not be able to do as much as the other countries that we look upon as the food basket of the world if we do not mechanize. You must replace human power with machine power. We must be able to do that. A lot of these things are in the pipeline. They are work in progress. From 2017, if you recall, we had been talking about mechanization, borrowing 1.1 billion worth of farm equipment from Brazil. Up to this moment I'm talking to you, it's not here. The question of seed, for instance, I am a member of the Seed Council. There are many seed companies producing seeds and they have licenses, and we went around. I was in charge of the seed companies in the Northwest. We went, we saw everything that they were doing. We advised here and there, and they are working. But they are not being patronized even by government. Even when government is saying that it's going to support with seeds, where is it buying the seed from? I have reports from the seed company from Sudan, from some of the seed companies that I go to, that they don't have that patronage. So if you don't patronize them, and you have the government has the regulation, because we passed the Seed Act 2019, and it is supposed to even punish anybody who does anything untoward with seed, and nobody is supposed to come and to bring in seed from anywhere. But in certain circumstances, we have seen, for instance, for wheat, CBN brought 13,000 metric tons of seed wheat, and they launched it in Plateau State. They bought it from Mexico. Mexico, yes, they have the expertise, they have the competence to be able to produce that seed. But why don't you encourage the Lake Chad research institute to be working, and they fund them very well so that they do it very well. Why don't you look at other seed companies and entrepreneurs to get into that? So you see, when you miss the missing link between all these activities and you start working in silos, you will have a problem. You see, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture is the institution that has the mandate for agriculture. But you find what the CBN is doing, the kind of money that it is spending on agriculture, is manifold times of, the budget of agriculture. And then you see one day Nalda came in. Nalda, instead of doing working with him in agri-lands and expanding the cultivable land, they were doing integrated farms all over the place. They did one in Katsina which the president launched. Go there. Nothing is working. I was there myself. Nothing is working there. So all that money that we have been doing these things with should have been channeled properly, and it should be institutionalized. The intervention from CBN, the Nalda issue, whatever, they should be institutionalized so that you can ask questions. If the CBN governor leaves today, do you think the CBN will act in the same way that it is acting in terms of the Ankogro and all that?
So rather those funds are channeled through the Ministry of Agriculture?
Not necessarily the funds, the actions.
The actions.
Yeah, because see, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture will not certainly give loan. Right. His mandate is not to give loan, right, but it can ascertain that the loan gets to the right farmers.
Fine. Okay, we'll look at that in greater detail. But let's go back to Deputy Command of Corps, Olusola Odumosu. And I'd like you to talk in greater detail on the issue of agro rangers, okay? And the collaboration with the farming population. And Nigeria is such a vast country, and this, from my understanding, is very serious business, serious stuff. So tell us more about it.
Like I said earlier, the Agro Rangers is the initiative of government to guarantee food sufficiency. And when the idea came, NSCDC was appointed to be in charge. And the essence, like I did reiterate earlier, is to guarantee farmer security. And when the idea came, we have trained, like I said, over 5,000, and they have been deployed into different farms in different parts of the country. A number of state governors have approached the Corps to ask for assistance in terms of giving protection to their farmers, and this we're doing in different parts of the Northeast, like I said, like in Borno, in Yobe, in Taraba, in Bauchi. These are places where we have pockets of violent attacks and clashes, especially between farmers and herders. And with the rise of banditry and all of that, which is constitute a threat to the farmers, we have been able to stand in the gap for the farmers, and we are boosting their confidence. But I must tell you that it does not only end in just farmers protection. We have other subunits within the Agro Rangers, and we have the intelligence and the investigation unit, the surveillance unit, like sorry to say. And the essence of that is to, do some covert operations, because, every security operation thrives on credible intelligence. And that is why we have that unit. And of course, we also engage the host communities. We have carried out a lot of sensitization, between the farmers and the herders. We have the peace and conflict resolution unit. That's that we're taking advantage of the alternative dispute resolution, because most of these clashes, some of those we identified happening between farmers and herders. The instances when some of the farmers had their farmers encroached by herders. And in such instances, we are able to come in between them and bring them together and be able to resolve the crisis without necessarily degenerating into a bloodbath. We've been able to do this successfully, and also we are, making sure that every other places we have to orientate the people, because when we talk about security of the farms, Nigerians are quick to put the blame at the doorstep of security agencies, in the country. And why this is unfair is the fact that we should come to the realization that security is everybody's business. Most of those people that attack farmers, the bandits, the kidnappers, they are not invincible. There are people that live within the communities. There are people that you and I see every day. And, most of us, especially Nigerians, we have, we have this lackadaisical attitude to security management. And we often believe that it is only security operatives that should do the needful, forgetting that we all have roles to play. Now, in a community where you have suspicious activities, suspicious movements, there was somebody who sometime last week was telling me that while he was driving from one axis of Abuja to another axis, of Abuja, he noticed some bike riders, about 5 of them. They were, dressed in similar fashion. They carried backpacks. 5 of them were riding on one of the expressway in Abuja. And the first question I asked him was that, when you saw that, what came to your mind in the first place? Because, you see, these are issues that are germane to our collective security. When you notice such suspicious movement, it beholds on you as a citizen of the country to alert the nearest security agency or operatives close to you. Because when attack happens, we are quick to blame security operatives. A stitch in time, they say, saves 9. Assuming that guy that was giving me that account, he took necessary steps. Thank God that nothing happened after such instance. But who knows where those people were headed? Who knows what they were carrying at their backs? Because they cannot be Okada riders, obviously, with the way they were dressed. That is where the people need to come in. We need to help the government to solve most of the security challenges in the country. Security operators cannot do it alone. For us in civil defense, we are doing our best. Like I said, 5,000 personnel were trained. When the new Commandant General came, they expanded the scope. And today we have about 7,000 Agro Rangers personnel. But now, let's look at it this way. The entire agrarian community, or everyone that is engaged in agricultural production as a business or their investment, how much of that population can 7,000 personnel protect? And that is why we have to look at increasing the capacity of the corps in terms of getting more hands, because even if we like the 7,000 personnel trained, it is not enough to cater for the lots people within this agro-allied investment and agro-allied business. And that is not the only challenge. We also have some operational deficiencies, which of course the government is looking at it. The Commandant General is making sure that most of those challenges are taken care of. And that is the only way we can guarantee the security of lives and property. And don't forget, there are other areas of engagement that civil defense is involved in. So that is where we need the people's cooperation. That is why we need people to be involved. When we talk about the act of policing, people often look at it from that point of view of, okay, security operatives alone, but that is not how it is. So we have to begin to look inwards and let our people understand, even the farmers themselves. By the time you give information ahead, it helps security operatives to respond as quickly as possible. Because don't forget, most of the activity, and that is most reasons why security operatives don't discuss their operational plans on TV or in the media. Because as we speak, Some of those people we're talking about, some of those bandits, they're watching TV and they are following government day by day. And, you know, as government too, you have to be proactive. You have to be ahead of those criminals, because as you are bringing out one dimension of plans or strategy, they are also watching you and they are trying to get ahead of government. So how can we help each other? And that is where we need the cooperation of the people, we need the cooperation of the farmers, and government also, we need to also, aside from training and retraining of personnel, we also need to improve their capacity and expand, you know, our ability to be able to do this assignment.
Thank you. Well, hopefully the audio where you are with Professor Abugambu is now okay. And Prof, I guess we can hear you now if you're speaking. You can hear me. So I'm assuming that once you start speaking again, we'll be able to hear you loud and clear. I'd like to return to the question of inputs and equipment. You started giving us some statistics about what it costs now for a tractor, and the fact that not very many of farmers will be able to afford that. But again, tractorization is key to increased yield. So what have you seen so far in terms of support from state authorities? Speaking of equipment and inputs across the country.
Thank you very much once again, Cyril. Now, let's look at it from, I want to take it from the academic and the practical level. I'm an academician and I'm also a practical farmer. I'm a member of the All Farmers Association of Nigeria, very active one. My president is sitting next to you. We communicate constantly. But then the truth of the matter is, there is what we call the National Council on Agriculture, and they meet only once annually. Market women meet weekly. Clubs and associations meet weekly. Alumni associations meet monthly. But now you have a situation whereby you have the National Council, which is the highest body of controlling agriculture. They meet once per annum. When you go to the Agricultural Council meeting, when you look at the minutes, you find out that about 50% or 60% of the members that attended last year are no longer there, because most commissioners of agriculture are dropped, some are changed, etc. So I now posit a situation whereby the council should actually be done at least quarterly. So that the problems of the farmers can actually be brought and the council can solve them. Now talking about equipment and mechanization. Cyril, the hoe that we are talking about, when you go to some African countries, Rwanda for example, the hoe is now found in the museum. But in Nigeria, the farmers still do not have access to anything except the hoe. But then the hoe cannot do the land plowing and harrowing, and you need the tractor. Some states have very little tractors. Some have plenty, but then they are not functional. Like in Borno State, plenty of tractors, but then they cannot go to certain areas because of the security issues. So now they are left to find another means. The other means is the animal traction. You have to get your bulls, 2 big ones, and then you get the plow. You put it, the plow for you. Unfortunately, with the cattle rustling, the bulls are also rustled away. So what is the next alternative? I had a story for the very first time that in some villages in Nigeria today, human beings, 50 men, they will get 2 of them, and then they put the plows on their backs. They are plowing the land. We degenerated to such a level. It's really very unfortunate. But then I had a small discourse with the present Minister of Agriculture, Dr. Abakar Mohammed, just some few days ago. And I saw hope. I saw the passion and the empathy he has for this. So talking about policies now, what he did was to strengthen the existing policies. Within the same government, when Chief Audogbe was there was the Green Alternative. The Green Alternative went away with Chief Audogbe. Then recently, we had Alaji Nono as the minister, and then he came out with another program, the policy. When Alaji Nono went, the policy also went with him. But now I'm happy. We have a man that is so much focused, pragmatic, and what he did was, he said, bring all those old policies, let's try to put them into a single, holistic, workable, and practical plan. And that is the NAPTIP. I want to commend the Honorable Minister for Agriculture for that, definitely. So strengthening policies is the most important thing. Then he also talks about interventions. Yes, the Federal Minister of Agriculture has done interventions in Kaduna, in Plateau, across the geopolitical zones actually, in Ogun, in Edo, Taraba, etc. But then the water and the gari, they do not match. Really. So you can never get a good EBA. That is the truth of agriculture in Nigeria. But then we came in and we said, okay, Honorable Minister, we like this policy NAPTIP. But the truth of the matter is, it was done at the federal level. Most of the states are not even aware of this document, Cyril, as I'm talking to you. And luckily enough, the Nigerian Governors Forum has taken the bull by the horns. I'm aware, we wrote to the Honorable Minister that there should be a kind of sensitization and advocacy on this noble policy. Like I said, it's so holistic. And then we are waiting for that. Then secondly, talking about the other policies across the countries, there are federal universities of agriculture. They are doing plenty of work.
I'll go into that shortly. For now, we'll just ask you to pause a while. We'll take a short break. When we return, this conversation will continue, and we'll talk about the position of those universities of agriculture, those institutions, those specialized institutions that should be providing the support for agriculture. But stay with us on NTA Tuesday Live. We'll be back shortly.
One of us is affected by the circulation of illicit small arms and light weapons in our communities. Our beloved ones, breadwinners, farmlands and livelihoods are lost. Our homes are lost. Even young children are not left out. These weapons cause pains and sufferings, devastating our societies. It is our collective duty as every Nigerian stakeholder, religious or community leaders, traditional rulers or civil societies, and at every level of governance to work with security agencies to stop the proliferation of illicit arms. We must shun the trafficking or possession of illicit arms. We must reject any inducement to help in its transportation. We must report all suspected individuals or groups involved in the smuggling or stockpiling of small arms and light weapons or illicit arms to the nearest security agency for prosecution, as our government is very determined to end this menace. Let us come together and work for safe and secure Nigeria. This message is brought to you by the National Center for the Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons.
The 157-kilometer Lagos-Ibadan Railway is the first double-track standard gauge railway to be built in West Africa. The Mobolaji Johnson train station is a masterpiece, an infrastructure that is gradually becoming an iconic building in Lagos State. The modern facilities put the station on a world map of train stations. Likewise, other new train stations across the country built to world-class standards. The train and its convenience is indeed an admirable effort, with commendations from Nigerians.
This is a station that we have to commend the federal government for putting a beautiful face, empowering us in Lagos State, not only in economic and political arena.
I can say that I'm really impressed with the infrastructures in place. Kudos to the Minister of Transportations. Kudos to the federal government.
Truly, good things are coming out of Nigeria, and the federal government is deserving of all the applause.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Right, thanks for staying with us. Now, this is the segment where you get to be part of the discussion in the studio. The phone lines will be on. You can take advantage of those lines and call in and air your views. As we say every Tuesday, if your call gets through to the studio, do us a favor, turn down the volume of your TV set to avoid the hurlback or the echo. And we also encourage you to go straight to the point. We ask you not to spend too much time on greetings. Just a mere hello would be fine. Like to see that we get as many opinions as possible, because we're talking about food security, and yes, you really need food security for every other thing to fall into place. So we expect that we'll get a number of calls tonight. And just as the calls begin to come in, let's go on to other report. This one is from Kebbi, and it's by Usman Abdullahi Shehu.
The attainment of national food security is achieved when only all the people have access to enough safe and nutritious food to meet their requirement for survival and a healthy life. This can only be achieved through sustained policies in ensuring adequate requirement of the food producers and processors. The challenges of food security attainment are numerous and differs from one society to another. However, some of these challenges include climate change and global warming, scarcity of land for farming, technological barriers, poverty, lack of water supply for irrigation, and lack of agricultural inputs, to mention but a few. Kebbi State, as an agrarian state with huge potentials to produce enough food for local consumption and surplus for exportation, has been in the forefront of the federal government commitment in ensuring food security and self-sufficiency through the agricultural transformation agenda of the present administration. With the fact that rice and wheat production have doubled capacity among other crops produced in the state recently, thanks to the Anko Borrowers program, though the desired results are still miles away, as the farmer's headache remains the same over years, ranging from lack of farm inputs, fertilizer in particular, saying that the subsidized government fertilizers are not available, and at the open market a bag is cost for about 25 to 30,000 naira, which is way beyond an ordinary small-scale farmer.
Initially, we have fear of drought, but later the rain was stable. But fertilizer is costly, more than 20,000 naira per bag. We are appealing to the government to do something, especially for small-scale farmers like us, who are looking for food to feed our family. The rain is okay, but there is a problem because a small-scale farmer like me cannot cope with the cost of farm inputs, fertilizer in particular. Thank God for the stable rain, but let government do the needful. We need fertilizer.
Apart from the man-made challenge, another disaster that farmers decried over is the encroachment of the quilla beds that swarm and finishes farms' produce in their hundreds in a matter of minutes. Arugungu, Bunzan, some parts of Baguda local government are some of the areas affected by the birds. The farmers believe that the destruction witnessed so far is a serious threat to food security in the country.
We have encountered a lot of losses. They have eaten my whole farm. I am now a laborer because of this bird. These birds are disaster. As you can witness, they have destroyed all the farm. It's forcing us to harvest the rice before it's actual harvest time. And there is nothing a farmer can do about it. We usually come to protect our rice fields very early in the morning until around 7 p.m. every day.
In Birnin Kebbi, Usman Abdullahi Shehu.
All right, that report by Usman Abdullahi Shehu from Kebbi. There's an aspect I want us to look at, and this is happening because of the impact of the war in Ukraine and Russia, and that's it's impacting the price of bread, for instance. And wheat is an issue here, where most of the wheat that Nigeria requires is coming from that part of the world. But there is also the initiative in Nigeria, the wheat, and many think, well, perhaps we should have done much better, or just how far we've gone with wheat here in Nigeria, and you may be able to give us the statistics here.
Thank you very much, Serious. Wheat, as far as Nigeria is concerned, has always been looked at as a crop that has to be imported. But the global trend now has made it necessary for us to look inwards and reduce the importation of wheat. This is not starting because of the Ukrainian war. It is starting as a deliberate policy of government through the Central Bank of Nigeria, whereby wheat is not being wheat importation is not being supported with foreign exchange. So the bakers or the flour mills, well, now they have to source for what their requirement for importation and also support local production of wheat. I can tell you that from 2019 till now, our production of wheat has been going up.
Okay, I'll just ask you to hold on there a while. We'll come back to that production, but we have this first call coming from Birnin Kebi, and it's easily one of the usual callers here. Umar Anachi, I believe, from Birnin Kebi. Is that you?
Yes.
Good. And we just had a report from Kebi. So go on and tell us what you think.
Thank you, Cyril. Good evening, gentlemen. The true picture is that not only on agricultural program like Ankuparua, virtually all the CBN intervention program did not reach the target people. That is where the problem is. You have a good plan, a very perfect one, but on paper. It was just on paper. When it comes to implementation, you hear different story. Then you frame other tech things like pyramid. Check pyramid. Field everywhere. No reality on ground. This thing is not a real thing. I spoke to you on one time program, one different Uncle Baroa, where the governor was in the seat. I told him it was not true. You just speak grammar on the screen of television, but on reality, it is not there. I see this man. May God bless you. The man in with white cap. May God bless you there. You spoke the truth. That is the reality of the things. Thank you.
All right. Umar Anachi, thank you. Well, referring there to the president of Alpha. Okay. So, yes, you were telling us about how production initiatives came about and how Nigeria is doing better with the question of wheat.
Yeah, we don't really, as a ministry, the ministry is supporting increased production of wheat. Wheat is a dry season crop. It has to be irrigated. But the good news is that some part of this country, research has shown that some part of this country can actually grow wheat during the rainy season. For example, Jos Plateau and Taraba, that's in the Mambila area. So we can also, those two states have been identified to be able to do the wet season wheat. But the bulk of the wheat we are doing now is from the dry season, starting from November, and I think about 14 states have been identified to be able to do it. And we are not doing it as an experiment. We are doing it because other African countries have done the same thing and they have succeeded. I'm talking about Ethiopia and Sudan, who imported the same type of wheat. But this our importation is not something that is sustainable, and it is not to be continuous. It's to multiply, it's for seed multiplication, so that henceforth there will be no seed for us to to produce. The projection for this year is that we're going to do 250,000 hectares of land by about 250,000 farmers, and if we are projecting that we'll do 3 tons per hectare, that will give us 750,000 tons. So over a period of 5 years, that's the projection, with consistent funding, that will be able to meet more than half of our wheat importation bill. Okay. If you look at the quantum of job this will also create, normally there are idle hands during the dry season. You can imagine that if they have work to do and good crop that is actually actually for milling. And the good thing also is that this initiative is not being driven by government alone. The flour mills are all involved. In fact, I have a clip that shows that for this 2021 dry season, a farmer got 7 tons per hectare. All depends on good agronomic practices.
Okay. All right. Next caller, Bjorn from Lagos. Hello. We have Bjorn calling in from Lagos. Is Bjorn still on the line?
Thank you very much.
Right.
I appreciate everyone for the job and the contribution to the nation on the food security. This country, we know ourselves. So many things have to be done, which I have to recommend and give a thanks to the kudos to the present ambition of this, which is the president of the Nigeria now. On food, the agriculture has been on the major things which is moving on. It is only few people who understand how food is being important to human beings. If we look at I don't want to look at, but everyone have to be, even the private, not only government should be on the aspect. The private, many things have to be done. Many only things to do on food. You cannot believe without food. If you didn't take.
All right, I think we'll have to ask you to call back. There's some challenge with your call there. Just try and call in again. Might be able to get you clearer. But back to the studio and the president of AFAN. And 2 things I would say, still taking it from where we left off, speaking about wheat, the impact of that on a staple bread. We heard about the downing of tools, do we say, when bakers go on strike, they shut down the ovens and all that, and the dough doesn't rise. Okay. Well, there are so many things. Wheat is a problem, but we also hear the impact of diesel and so many other issues too.
Yes, the wheat issue is has gone through many things. If you remember, in 1988, the government of Babangida did the wheat program. As an architect, I also designed the labor line and some offices for the irrigation division of Katsina State Ministry of Agriculture, because Katsina was also slated to participate in wheat production. And a lot of talk went around, and ICOM and the vice president went all over the place, and we were doing all preparations for wheat production. Suddenly, it went down. And as everybody knows, in 2015, we went to Kebbi with the president to launch the same day and on the same point
Ankoboroa program for both wheat and rice. If you check records, that's what we went to do. Somehow, the wheat issue did not take off. Today, the CBN is doing an Ankoboroa program on wheat. The president of the Wheat Association, Alhaji Salim, tells me that there is a lot of hope, as the Ministry of Agriculture pointed out, that the seed from Mexico is very good, and the farmers are happy, and the production is very good. But even at 750,000 metric tons, if we are able to achieve that this year, our need for wheat is far from being reached. I should know about this because I have a bakery. And I have closed.
What you can produce here is just about 4% of what you need.
So, but what it is this: if we institutionalize the issue of wheat production and we give it the attention that it deserves, we will be able to optimally produce wheat.
Okay.
If anybody is saying we will only produce 4% of what we need, do we have the real data of really what we need? Do we have it? I'm bringing my bakery back to Abuja because in Katsina you cannot sell a loaf of bread for 1,000 naira or 700 naira. Here in Abuja, I've seen loaves of 700, 800 naira. I'm a businessman. I'm coming. Okay. In other places, you cannot sell your bread at that. That's why people are crying and so many bakeries are being shut. Okay. And then I want to take you there again. The issue of food is such that there are many people working on other crops to integrate into bread making. Take cassava flour.
Yeah, that happened at some point in time, but
even now,
the cassava never went off the ground.
No. Yesterday I was in. We were in. I think Professor Gambo was there with me. We went on for public hearing in the Senate. People are talking about confectionery quality cassava flour. But what happened at that time was there was a misadventure in terms of cassava. I was then the president of Poultry Association of Nigeria. The then minister spoke to the producers and marketers of cassava, and they said they could even give us, the poultry farmers, what they call cassava grit, to be able to integrate it into our feed component for the animal. We ordered 1,000 metric tons. They couldn't give us.
Okay. Yeah. Back to the phones now. We have Abubakar calling in from Abuja. Hello, Abubakar. Hello?
Yes, good evening, sir. I can hear you.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, my question is to the Minister of Agriculture.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. You want the...
Yeah, the issue of Ankomboroa. We saw a lot of display at the trade fairs ground.
Okay, go on.
And
oh dear. Abubakar, are you still there? Oh dear, we lost that call. But can call in again. He has a question. He had a question for the Director of Agric Lands, and unfortunately, before he could conclude that question, the line went off. So if you can just call back, we'll see if we can get you on so you can ask your question. Right. So, as you were saying, there was what you call a misadventure with cassava. But anyhow, we're back to 2022, and there are so many things affecting wheat. Of course, by extension, increasing the price of bread and making it more difficult to get it. Bakers, I understand, are back now. But we're looking into the future and seeing how by the time you can produce more, then as the director said, a 5-year period, then you begin to phase out the question of importing most of what you need. But again, you have the local challenge of diesel, which is one of the things the bakers complained about. And that again goes back to the same international external forces.
Yes, see, diesel is a problem because our energy sector, power, is not working. So we are caught between the devil and the deep blue sea. We are looking for alternative to power.
Okay.
And then we are using diesel to create our own power. What Nigeria should do is to make the power available, to work more on the power, so that the diesel will not be an issue.
Okay.
That's what, you know, in America, for instance, the United States is making many efforts to replace petrol or petroleum, and other countries of the world.
Yeah, so Nigeria is getting there as well. Well, this call is from Nathan, Abuja. Hello, are you there? Go ahead. Hello. There seems to be a delay tonight on the lines. Hello, go ahead.
Good evening. How are
Good evening. Just go ahead.
My contribution is that I want to ask, like we in Southern Kaduna, we farm ginger. We have corn, but the government started well in 2015 regarding fertilizer and other seeding. Then I don't know what happened along the line from 2016 up to date. There's nothing. If you travel to Samunaka, you normally know that farm corn. Today, there is nothing. We know, yes, there is security problem. I commend the commend the president and you, Sri Toba, for the program. Please, the government should gear up. Because what I'm seeing today in Nigeria, no food, there is security threat. So how are we going to survive into this? For what we are seeing, and all the time security threat, and the farmers cannot even go to farm. Even we farm, the elders normally come and cut our crop. Last 2 weeks, our corn nearly to harvest. When I traveled down to the village, my brother was crying. Many people cut up the crops. Why did I advise him? I said, no, don't go to station or whatever. It has already been. So we need, the government need to gear up. Minister of Agriculture, yes, it's my minister from Kaduna. He should pick the challenges so that Nigeria will have food in the table. That's my contribution, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Nathan from Abuja. Thank you. Yes. And so he raised the question about ginger. President Alphan, you want to respond to the situation in ginger? I'm sure there's a ginger association under Alphan, right?
You see, ginger has always been a commercial crop, and there is a lot of interest in it, and a lot of it is being produced in that part of Nigeria, and most of it is actually done there. But you know, even the CBN, unknown to him, the CBN has been trying to do Ankobora program even in Akwa Ibom. They want to get the seed type that will thrive there. Everybody is working around it. The ministry, as I said, is handicapped by intervention of the CBN. The CBN, if the intervention should be domiciled in the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Agriculture knows exactly where these competencies are and who should be accessed to get support for doing that thing. If that happens, I believe we will have a broad approach to it. But if you are a blind man and you are given everything to use to find your way without any help from anywhere, will you be there? You will not. So the what is happening in crop production in southern Kaduna is unfortunate. If he tells me that he doesn't see much corn, even the ginger that we're talking about is not seen, but he also knows there is insecurity, but he's not basing everything on insecurity. He is talking about fertilizers and probably availability of seeds and all that. These are issues that should be addressed by Kaduna state government, not by the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, because agriculture actually takes place in the states. The enabling environment for it to really take place would be marshaled by the Federal Ministry of Agriculture through this Council on Agriculture that Prof was talking about, that should not be only yearly or annually, should be quarterly, because it is there that the states will have a buy-in on what the central government wants to do, and then it will simply take it, because everybody there will bring in their contributions, and there will be a communique capturing everybody's opinion, and so the whole document will be everybody's idea.
All right, we have another caller. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, please just introduce yourself and go on.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
Yes.
My honorable minister of Malamako. Yes, my contribution is that we cannot have food security without providing necessary infrastructure and social amenity for rural dwellers, because they are almost 70% of our entire population. That's caused rural urban migration. How do we curb that? By providing necessary infrastructure to them. That is necessary. Let's forget about the money. Some of them are collecting this money without any fruitful benefit. But let's ensure that we give them good necessary facilities like water, electricity. Those young people, they will stay in the farm and they will continue to work. Then the second one is the issue of security. If we have trees in the rural area, they will try to go farm, they will free. That's my contribution, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's go over to Professor Abagambo. I'd like to go to the matter of livestock. Now, this is another area where there have been so many challenges, but the transformation plan is what we want to consider here. And when you are done speaking, would ask the director from the Federal Ministry of Agriculture here about the coordination and how this is expected to improve livestock production and hopefully ameliorate the serious consequences of what's been happening in that sector. Well, I'll let you talk about that, Professor Abagambo.
Once again, talking about the livestock sector is a very, very important component of the agricultural value chain. When you go to the rural areas, you always find every home with some kind of livestock. And then in most of the rural areas, the livestock are kept for a kind of ATM. The woman is about giving birth, and then there is no money to take her to the hospital, and the hospital might be far away. Then you quickly take one goat, sell it, and then get the cash. In some cases, the cattle are also being sold to solve some family problems. Now, sincerely, as far as the livestock is concerned, I want to give due credit to the President of our country, His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari. What he did was, he said the livestock transformation plan should be domiciled within the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. And the minister was so proactive, and then they took the document. As we are talking now, There is so much that is happening in most of the states as far as livestock transformation is concerned. But the issue here still is, we want a situation whereby livestock should not be based on the traditional pastoralism, whereby you carry your cattle from Borno, next tomorrow you are in Taraba, next tomorrow you are in somewhere, and then clashes here and there. So we want a situation whereby we said it should be zero grazing. Keep your animals by yourselves, but then the Federal Ministry of Agriculture is willing now, under this transformation plan, to make sure that, why do the people move with their cattle across the country? There are two factors. One, they are looking for pasture for their animals. The rainy pattern in the northern Borno, for example, we have 3 months of rainfall. So within the 3 months of rainfall, the grasses are not enough to feed the animals. So they have to move down to places like Kaduna, where the rainfall pattern is about 5 months, and then they move down south, where you have about 9 months, and in fact, up to the south, where the rainfall pattern is almost 10 months per annum within the same country. So the issue now is, you make a facility, and then you introduce the pastures that they are looking for. Then the second issue they are also moving is water. So you provide a permanent source of water, you provide the pasture that the animals need, you make sure that there is a small veterinary clinic within the same facility. You now also have some milk collecting centers, whereby the milk can be collected and money will be given back to the herders. Then you also have a small market system whereby they can actually bring the milk, sell it, and then there is plenty of trade by barter going all over the country, really. They bring milk and then you give them grains. It's happening even now as I'm talking. So it's a very noble idea. And then all of us in the agricultural system, we support it because it's very noble. It's high time this movement of animals from one place to another is checked. And the best way to check it, like I said, is the zero grazing method, whereby you keep your animals in one place and then the government will provide the enabling environment. That enabling environment is what forms the National Livestock Transformation Plan. Pilot projects have already been done by the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, and they are very successful. And recently, in Mayobelwa, His Excellency Admiral Murtala Nyako, he launched about 5 brands of yogurt with strawberry, yogurt with apple, etc. But what they are doing there is, you now form a kind of cluster. Everybody has cow, so every day you milk your cow and then you come to the Sabare farms of Murtala Nyako, they record it. Another one will bring 10 liters, Mr. B will bring 30 liters, etc. Then every Friday you come and then you collect your cash. So now you have a kind of massive movement across Mayobelwa, whereby people are buying cows, retired civil servants are buying cows to make sure that they partake in that. And the farm is collecting all the milk. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about under the transformation program. And Siri, let me just say one thing. The typical Nigerian cow, with all our livestock in the country, produces about 1 liter of milk per day. 1 liter. But then by the time you go to other countries, Namibia or South Africa, you find out the Freshian gives about 50 liters of milk per day. So the transformation plan is actually taking care of all this artificial insemination so that there will be better breeds, the F1, F2, etc. Then the Animal Research Institute, and I'm happy there is now an Institute of Animal Science, which was approved by the President also, and they are also very pragmatic. They are working together with the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. So this livestock transformation plan is a plan that is all-compassing, and then we have hope, like my president said, in what is happening, definitely. And we foresee in a very short while a massive transformation in the livestock sector under this present regime and under the purview of Alaji Abubakar Mahmoud. The gentleman is doing some good job and I'm happy, really.
Well, let's go over to Deputy Commander of Corps Olushola Odumosu. We've just been speaking about livestock sector, and you've heard the plans outlined by Professor Abagambu regarding modern practices in livestock. I'd like you to look at how that can impact on the security situation and how it can help to reduce cases of conflicts between pastoralists and farmers.
Once again, when Prof was answering your question, it's just the camera was not on me. I was actually nodding, in approval of zero grazing, and that will really impact positively on security of farmers. You don't forget, there was a time in the country where we had escalation of farmers herders clashes, which of course it affected farmers' input, it affected agricultural produce, and of course, it's one of the major problems we had to contend with. And that's apart from other banditry activities, kidnapping, and the rest of them. But got so good, in civil defense, the agro rangers have been able to repel a number of attacks on farmers, and even been able to stop attempted kidnaps on most of these farmers. A lot of us may not get to hear that, but I want to tell you that the agro rangers, they're working assiduously to ensure that farmers are secured. We have keyed into the food security plan of federal government, and that is why we're doing all of this we're doing now. One of the things that usually is responsible for the clashes, we could look at what is happening in the world today. Climate change is one of the factors, and the pastoralists, they if you look at it critically, for those who are conversant with herders grazing activities, there's usually what they call grazing routes. Because of civilization, because of developments, most of these grazing routes have been overtaken, by farmers, by developments, by building, by all of this. So the herders, they are left with no alternative than to look for fertile lands where they can actually pasture their cows. And of course, when this happens, when you move from one region, just like Prof actually itemized, we have different regions with different patterns of rainfall. So if you are within this region and it happens to be, there's no rain for this period, they have to move. And most of them are left with no choice, and that is why you see them moving into people's farms. You can't take me for granted. If I'm a farmer, I've labored so hard. We're talking about seedlings, we're talking about the high cost of fertilizers, we're talking about so many factors that have militated against agricultural production in the country. So some farmers even go to the point of having to take loans to be able to work on their farms. And here we go. Somebody is, you just wake up one morning and all your crops are gone. That is the beginning of those clashes we're talking about. So if government can look critically into that zero grazing policy, it will really help. And what that means is that you, as the owner of your cattle or livestock that you keep, you are able to ranch them properly. We see things happening around the world. It is not only in Nigeria that we have livestock farmers. Some of us have been privileged to travel abroad, and we see how these things work over there. You go abroad, you see some of the cows that you see, you want to embrace them, because the fact that they are being ranched gives them better quality of milk, better quality of meat, and the rest of that. And in that context, you are able to generate better qualities. You are able to stop clashes between farmers and herders. I told you earlier that we have a unit of the agro rangers which specializes in alternative dispute resolution. I cannot count on my fingers the number of crises we have been able to resolve between farmers and herders. Some were lucky to resolve it and did not allow it to, go overboard. You didn't allow it to transcend into, where we have to lose lives and property. Because when these clashes happen, lives are lost, properties are destroyed, and all of this put together, runs into millions of naira. So the only way forward is for us to look at this problem holistically, to be able to help. When this happens, you are helping the security operatives. The agro rangers will have less work to do, and there'll be less crisis, there'll be less bloodbaths, and of course there'll be more production from the farmers. So I think it is a very good policy. We should begin to look into that direction, and we can have less to do, because there is no way you have a crop. My farm, you encroach on my farm, and you have my crop destroyed. I will not take it lightly with you. I cannot be happy, especially when you look at the investment, apart from the energy, the money, and efforts put into that. And that is why, for us in civil defense, in some states where we have been engaged, though we have agro rangers in every formations of the corps. And don't forget, we have a formation in all the 36 states of the country, including the Federal Capital Territory. So in all of these places, we have been able we've tried our best, and we are still working assiduously to ensure all of these things work together so that the food security plan of federal government can be achieved. But of course, we still need assistance, and that assistance can be gotten when issues of grazing is being put to a stop. It will really help.
Nan, quickly, still speaking about livestock transformation, yes, this would be another purview of the ministry now, and what's the advantage of that?
Thank you very much. So I've listened to what Professor Gambo and the Deputy Commandant. It is true that the National Livestock Transformation Plan is not domiciled in the ministry, and the experience and the reach of the ministry cannot be used to actualize what is contained, the objectives of that plan. Recently, the minister just met with the governors that are going to participate in the Livestock Productivity Resilience Support project. That's a World Bank assisted project that will be used to drive the National Livestock Transformation plan, and they were very eager, to get the plan off the ground to start the implementation. And also what the ministry is also doing is to continue to sensitize the livestock farmers, that is the pastoralists, on the need for them to embrace modern way of raising livestock. Actually, livestock farmers and crop farmers can coexist side by side. One of the things contained in the livestock, the LPS project, is restoration of rangeland. Because what is driving this conflict is competition over natural resources that is caused by population growth and climate change. Luckily, we have technology now that we can use to restore the degraded land that livestock or crop farmer would have abandoned. So if all those are done, so the livestock farmers and the crop farmer can live side by side. We also have what we call zero waste. I will not say zero grain, but zero waste. The zero waste is the alternative feeds that is available to feed livestock at off season. That is crop residues from the crop farmers will be brought over and processed into livestock feeds that can sustain the livestock until the next rainy season, or they are able to have access to pasture. In fact, this very minister, Dr. Mahmoud Abubakar, have just announced and designate June of every year as the day of pasture. That is, it is important for us to grow, for both crop farmer and livestock to grow pasture to feed these livestock. Considering the size of the country, we need to be self-sufficient in livestock production, and we have taken steps. And the issue of states that are participating in the LATP is not restricted to the northern part of the country alone. It comprises the whole or any state that is interested. Okay. So not just it's not northern. No, it's not another issue. Any state that is interested is can participate in the LPRES project, and quite about 7 states will be in the first the pilots of this project, and they cut across both north and south. I wouldn't want to mention them on air.
Right. Okay. Well, President Ahmed, as we wind down quickly, what's the most challenging problem here? Is it the lack of input? Is it moving crops, transportation of product, farm produce, or external forces, the war in Ukraine, Russia? Which is the most challenging for farmers now?
Today, I think this insecurity is very devastating. It's foremost in all the issues debilitating against productivity. And then, of course, recently the issue of the high prices of fertilizers and the inability of farmers to be able to afford them is also going to tell on the productivity. So these two things are likely to even form the theme for this year's agricultural show, because it is very important that we keep track of what is happening, and so that we create or enact measures to mitigate against them. Security, as the DC mentioned, is everybody's problem in Nigeria. If my son is partaking in any of these issues, I should be able to stop him or report him appropriately to be punished, because ultimately and invariably he is even doing something against himself, because sooner or later it will engulf him. So I think what we should do as a nation is to look at the food issue as everybody's issue. And if there is insecurity in Nigeria, there will not be productivity, because the engine room of agriculture today in Nigeria is still the smallholder farmer. And the smallholder farmer should be incentivized by subsidizing the inputs, especially fertilizers. The government should invest more in agriculture. You see, what we should do is to really invest with our eyes closed in a situation that will bring about peace and harmony in the whole nation. Because if you have this insecurity, I just received something here now, that somebody is saying that there is shooting now around Minister Say. In Abuja here, 22 farmers were abducted at some time. In my village, about 9 farmers were killed about a week ago. In Katsina State, I think in around Jibia, a commercial vehicle, this state transport vehicle was going along Jibia, not more than 7 kilometers from Jibia. It was attacked 3 days ago. The driver and 2 people were shot. The driver died on the spot, and all the passengers were abducted. So who will go to the farm around those areas? So, and this is cutting across all over the nation, the food basket of the nation. So insecurity is a very, very important. In fact, there is a nexus between insecurity and food security.
All right. Well, as we wind down this program, we'll just quickly go over to Professor Abagambu and ask you for your closing comments on ensuring that Nigeria is not hard hit by a global crisis which is threatening food security. Prof.
I want to tell you that there is a loaf of bread sold for 7,500 naira in Abuja today in one major supermarket. One loaf of bread, 7,500 naira. I know the supermarket, I know where the loaf is, I have a picture I can give you immediately after. Now, let's revisit the wheat situation and then the Russia-Ukraine crisis. You know, the more than 40% of global wheat is being produced by these two countries, and then they are fighting. Recently, the president of the African Union, president of Senegal, Macky Sall, was he went to Russia to beg, really, to beg President Putin that please, you should allow the grains that are in Russia to be carried out and exported to the countries, or else there will be a global food crisis, which everybody is seeing now. And then as we are talking, there is about 22 million metric tons of wheat harvested in Ukraine, but then it cannot be taken out. Now let's come back home. Wheat is not a new crop. When you go to Borno State, from Marte, Mafa, up to the shores of the Lake Chad, Gamborongala, we have what we call the vertisols. Vertisols are black soils that absorb plenty of water, and coincidentally, the vertisols I'm talking about are the same soils in Russia and Ukraine. That's why you hear about the war equipment being locked, etc. It's a kind of clay thing. You plant it and then the water will sustain everything. From our analysis, we know that wheat can be grown in 17 states in Nigeria. Really. And then, but then our demand per annum is 5.1 million metric tons for the 208 million Nigerians. But then the present level of production is just about 100,000. So you still have a huge gap. And at this point, I want to commend two organizations. First, the Central Bank of Nigeria has invested so much on wheat, and they are doing plenty of work on wheat. And secondly, the Nigerian Governors Forum saw the problem of wheat, and then as I'm talking to you now, they are in talk with the Central Bank, they are in talk with the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. In fact, the Nigerian Governors Forum wants to...
We are going beyond our time. So we will have to ask you to keep the rest for some other time, and we'll talk about this. Unfortunately, we've run out of time on this program, but we'd like to thank you very much, Professor Abba Gambo, Dean, Faculty of Agriculture, Yobe State University, Professor of Agronomy. And of course, we like to thank you for availing us of your wealth of knowledge in these matters. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
And also thank you to Deputy Command of Corps and Director of Public Relations, Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps Headquarters, Abuja, Olushola Udumosu. Thank you very much for coming. Thank
you for having me.
Okay. And thank you so much to the President of the Oil Farmers Association of Nigeria, always with us here when we request. We thank you, Kabir Ibrahim. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Okay. And our thanks also to Shehu Tijani Bello, MNI, Director Agric Lands and Climate Change Management Services Department of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Right. That's our program today. We thank you for watching. Next week we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stober. Continue to stay safe.
From dusk to dawn, 24 hours a day, NTA International is with you. In your living room,